You found Why We Are Christians. My name is Kent Philpott, and this is a conversational interview. I'm talking with a friend of mine here. His name is Curtis Roberts. This is part two. If you missed part one, you gotta find that part one, because this is part two. Here we go, Curtis. You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, now. Where did, after you got convicted on the 3 strikes law, 50 years to life, where did you go? Where did they send you first?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to just kind of back up a little bit,
Back up,
if I
back
may,
up.
because there's a very important element that took place there that is really speaks a lot about my own personality and who I am as a human being, is the fact that the house that we inherited in Big Bear Lake, that now that the grandfather has passed away, my in-laws, here I've been arrested, my in-laws threatened to take back the house. Now they are the beneficiaries of the estate. And so now they have charge over that house, and they said that if Curtis doesn't plead guilty, we're going to take back that house. So that was the threat made. So I figured, I'm an idiot to go use drugs and steal $40. I'm not going to be an idiot to leave my child and my, at the time, wife homeless. They could gladly have the house. I'll sacrifice my life for that.
Okay.
So I pled guilty. I was asked by my wife to plead guilty to 50 years to life, to the max. And I did.
Yeah. I know a little bit about this in our conversations over the years. Ideally, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. But I know that there were reasons why you didn't fight it, and so on.
Well, one last piece that I had agreed to, I said to my wife at that time, Shelley, I said, you can have the house, you can have the cars, you can have it all. I don't care about any of that. I could have been an idiot and fought for half of that stuff. Nah. I said, just don't keep my child from me.
Yeah.
I'm going to prison for the rest of my life. I want to see my child.
How old are you at that point?
So I might have been about 31 now, 32.
Okay, about 31.
So anyway, so I had asked her to please bring my child to me while I'm in prison, at least once a year. So she promised that she would. And so I pled guilty. I signed the divorce papers. I signed over my right to any of the property. And as soon as I did that, my home phone was shut off. The house went up for sale, and they vanished. And I never seen them again.
You've not seen your daughter again?
No.
No. Nor Shelley?
No.
Gone?
Gone.
Will you try to find them, or have you tried to find them?
I did.
You tried?
I tried while I was in custody. There's a thing called the Salvation Army. You pay them like $50, which I earned on my prison job. It took me a few months. But you pay them $50 and they'll search for your loved one. Sadly, I found out they wouldn't search for a minor. I wanted them to find my daughter, and they would not do it. So they said, we'll only search for an adult. And then when I said, well, the only adult is my now ex-wife. So they found her, but legally they can't give me that information, not unless she agrees to it. So when they found her, she says, no way. I don't want him to know nothing about us. So they had Salvation Army wrote me and said, sadly, we contacted your ex-wife, and she said, no, you cannot have her address.
What was the first prison you went to after that conviction?
Back to Tehachapi.
Back to Tehachapi. Okay.
Yeah.
What was things like then?
A lot of the guards that I had known just a year prior heard me say, hey, I'm innocent, I didn't do it. And now I'm back with 50 years to life. And they're just looking at me, you're such a liar. I didn't have no fight left in me. It was 50 years to life.
Yeah.
I just wanted to find a way to die.
Did you try suicides again?
I did.
Did you?
I did.
But you survived. There you are. I see you, Curtis. You're still here. You're still here. Now, how did you get to San Quentin?
Crazy enough, I heard San Quentin was the most violent prison, maybe in the nation, but certainly in California. So I chose to go to San Quentin because I thought it was a place to die.
Really?
Yeah.
That was the era where the heavy gang, a lot of gang stuff. I remember I was a volunteer there, going cell to cell in North Block, but West Block, where they were orientation, new guys coming. That was rough times.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up at San Quentin. I asked to go there.
Yeah. Okay.
And they were shocked. I said, I didn't tell them why, but that was my why.
Really?
Yeah. Actually, they took me because I'd already been in other prisons by this time. So they took me straight to the main line at San Quentin.
North Block?
Yeah, North Block. So
Okay.
that's where all of the main line is considered, where the prisoners who are set at San Quentin, who work, that's where they live for years and decades.
So you're level 2 prisoner at this point.
Yes.
Okay. What was your job? What were you doing at the prison?
I think my first job at San Quentin was on the lower yard, picking up trash,
Okay.
which I really loved because I wanted to be outside. And the other prisons I was at, we were on lockdown for months.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Yeah. I remember those lengthy lockdowns, gang stuff. State of California has done a fairly decent job of cleaning that up.
They have.
For those people watching, my wife is going to be coming in here and bringing something, and Katie's known Curtis for a long time. All right, thank you, Katie. Now I have a picture, Curtis. San Quentin Giants baseball team, 2010, and you're in the front row. And you wanted some pictures, and so I found that one. The San Quentin Giants, that's the year that the San Francisco Giants won their first World Series in a row, the first of 3. Now, let's see, okay, and then this one is another year. Is that you?
It is.
It is.
It looked like a very angry me.
You don't look like I don't have the details. I don't know what year that was. It was after this. It was later years. That's yours. And I got you a baseball. This is the 2011 season. Your signature is probably on there. So there's a baseball for you, a signed baseball from the guys that you will know. You see some names. And Curtis, you were starting second baseman, and you were our leadoff hitter for years. You were on the winningest teams we had at San Quentin Prison. You were a great athlete, great baseball player, as a matter of fact. So anyway, there you go, Curtis. You got a couple pictures and a baseball. I was already placed running the baseball program in '97. So I think you started playing, I think, the first year or the second year you got there.
Yeah, you're my coach.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember meeting you there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we had a lot of fun during that period, Curtis. I know that you were very much involved with the chapel. Can you tell us a little bit about those days?
What I recall about when I first got to San Quentin and playing baseball, it was like, it was almost like I was set free.
Mm-hmm.
It was some of the greatest.
Yeah.
baseball to me isn't just baseball. Baseball to me is um, one of the childhood memories I have, the fondest childhood memories I have, is when my mom and dad were together and I was playing Little League baseball.
Little League.
And as a child, you always want to play to please your mom and your dad, especially your dad. And I thought that if I ever got good enough at baseball, that they would come back.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I was at my last baseball game at the prison a week ago yesterday, and I was talking to a couple of guys that remembered you, but they always ask me, "How's Curtis doing?" Were you, Curtis? Were you at the game where we did 4 suicide squeezes?
well, no. I think I've been for that one.
Suicide squeezes to win a baseball game was must have been on a Thursday night. The lower yard comp was trying to get us to close it down, and I kept saying, "One more hitter, we want one more hitter. We need one more run."
I remember we had a whole bunch of media around us in those
Yes, we
early
did.
years. And remember I got to be interviewed by Bryant Gumbel. It was it was a great experience to having all the media around. I've never
Yeah.
experienced that.
Yeah. Now, your experience at the Protestant chapel at St. Quentin, I know that you were very much involved there. And tell us a little bit about that whole experience with Chaplain Smith and the other guys.
I got to see a whole bunch of people go home, and it was great being in the church. It was great serving God. It was great playing baseball, but it wasn't so great watching people go home, knowing that I was never going to go home. And I really wrestled with my relationship with God about the fairness of it all, because here guys that had committed the ultimate crime, in my mind, of murder, are going home with doing less time than me. And I didn't know how to reason that out with my relationship with a loving Heavenly Father. So I really struggled within the church setting because of my own internal wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Did you ever talk with Chaplain Smith or any of the people there about it?
Yes. And, you know, I know it affected Chaplain Smith. There wasn't really much he could say. You know, he witnessed it too. I mean, everybody's seen it. It was just happening. Everybody was going home. Chaplain Smith even wrote a book about it, and in the book he states that there's one guy that's left behind that will never go home. And it really impacted him because my crime was so different compared to the other guys that went home. So it impacted a lot of people in that circle, the immediate circle, about I was to never go home.
Yeah. What steps started being in place, Curtis, that finally led to your release? Because I remember some years back, you were going to come and be with us. I had a place for you. I had a car for you. My daughter Jenna's driving it now. You know, because we expected you to get out about 2 or 3 years ago. What were the steps? What was going on?
I'd say I think that I would like the viewers to know that you see me sitting here as Curtis Roberts, but what you don't see, and this is to answer your question, Pastor Kent, is you don't see the good people that came around me. Amazing, amazing people came around me, and they started sending letters to the governor. And it went from schools to people to federal judges, lawyers, the community just swarmed around me, and the word started getting out. I mean, I think it really started. I mean, Bryant Gumbel, when he interviewed me, he didn't talk to me about baseball. He knew I didn't want to talk baseball. He talked to me about my daughter. He talked to me about my sentence. And I think that was the start of this unfolding of this crazy sentence that I had. And that's what was happening behind the scenes, that a lot of good people saw in me what I didn't even see.
Yeah.
Like you. You
Yeah.
saw it and I didn't see it.
Yeah. People would come in for the prison, different delegations, people, and you would lead them on tours around the prison. I remember you doing that.
I did that for about 10 years.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
It gave me a platform.
Yes. You did a little preaching to them. You present your case a little bit too. I
Hey.
remember hearing about that, Curtis.
If they ask, I'm going to tell them. I was not well liked inside the prison setting because I was very boisterous, even on TV, about the fact that how are you releasing a guy who has committed murder or double murder? How are you releasing him before you're releasing me? How is he even getting a chance? And when I don't even get a chance, I wasn't even scheduled to go to the board until 2044. I was never.
2044.
That was my initial chance of going home. 2044. I had to do all 50 years.
Now this is the three strike deal.
How is that even possible?
Yeah.
It just could not make sense in my mind. Anyway, so every platform I had, everybody that stood before me was hearing it. You asked me the question, I'm telling you. And I wasn't liked in the prison because of that.
I remember that you weren't the most popular convict at the prison. Did you ever get any trouble? Ever get beat up or anything?
Yeah.
You did, didn't you?
I think what you're alluding to is 2008. I was raped in the prison, and rape in prison, it kind of happens, but it really doesn't just kind of happen. For a person of a certain race to rape a person of another race, you almost have to have permission, or you have to know that that person's an outcast. And so the whites, I consider myself Caucasian. I don't identify with the white race. But the whites inside the prison made it known that, hey, he's free game. Have at him. We don't like him. We don't want him. He's not part of us.
I understand. Because of your boisterousness, of your complaints about the circumstances, you kind of got dismissed from the people that should have been around you. And I think that's why you disappeared and you stopped playing baseball.
I stopped playing baseball because two things happened. One is I knew my mom and dad were never coming back, no matter how good I got. And then after the rape, I couldn't do it no more.
Just couldn't do it.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
It was the rape. That I was never the same after that.
I remember you were being ostracized. I remember that, Curtis. And I would be coming into the prison. I'd be looking for you. I could never find you. And I'd tell guys, tell Curtis I'm going to be here. I sent somebody up to North Block one time. I think it was Sleepy. I sent him up to North Block, said, get Curtis down here in the yard. And you didn't show up. You know, and I knew that there was stuff going on with you. Going on. Tell me about your relationship with Jesus at this point, Curtis, through all of this stuff.
I remember at one point at San Quentin, it was raining outside, and I remember yelling up to my Heavenly Father saying, you never went without knowing where your son was at, Jesus. I said, where's my daughter? I want to know. And I didn't just kind of say it kindly. I was screaming, and it was raining out. I didn't care. I was just screaming up into the heavens, "Where's my daughter?" Of course, he didn't answer right then and there. My relationship with God, with Jesus, was very strained. I struggled mightily. At one point, I threw my Bible away. I didn't just toss it in the trash can. I went down to the end of the tier and I slammed it as hard as I can. I said, "There you go."
Threw it against the wall?
No, I threw it into the trash can.
Oh, into the trash can, okay.
I said, "There you go, God." I said, "How you like that?"
You got over that. You got through that. Yeah.
He, you know, I didn't know what he had in mind. I didn't know. I mean, there's one part of this story that is very instrumental that should be brought out. I think it's even bigger than the rape. Is the fact that in 2003, this is only 3 years or 4 years right after I met you, they sent me to the hole at San Quentin.
I remember that.
There was an accusation made about me, but so they didn't put me in just any hole. They put me in the death row hole. So there I am, locked up with a whole row of death row inmates and me. And I remember the guy that was right next to me was a death row inmate, and he would say to me, Pastor Kent, that he would tell me his crimes. And he would say, "Will you pray to your God and ask your God to forgive me?" And I said, "Well, it doesn't work like that. You pray." And he says, "I'm unworthy. I can't." And Pastor Kent, after 6 months of being in that hole, as I'm being escorted, shackled out, 2 major things happened. One was that man on death row yelled out, "Thanks for coming and being my friend."
Really? Wow.
And the second
so
thing,
you were next to him for 6 months.
yeah, just being his friend.
We heard that you were in the hole, and I could find nobody to tell me what that happened. Okay, to get to the second thing, Curtis.
The second thing was the guard that was escorting me out. He put his hand on my arm. I'm still shackled up at this time. I'm at the front door. I'm getting ready to walk out of the hole. They're getting ready to take the shackles up off me. And he says, "You are a breath of fresh air in here. Thanks."
Really?
Yeah.
A breath of fresh air in here.
They just knew that I wasn't going to kill them or attack them. They just had a sense about that.
Yeah. That you were safe. You were okay. Here's a sense of something good present here. So, Curtis, how did you actually get out of prison?
So a California 3 striker just isn't released the way that we think it is. The power is actually taken away from the governor. So there was a 3-step process. It's called the M-Bank hearing. M-Bank hearing is the heads of the prisons, CDCR, they have to agree to let me out. So that was step 1. So once that was approved, then I had to go to the California Supreme Court. And out of the California Supreme Court, 4 of the justices had to approve to let me out. So now once that was approved, the final step was Governor Jerry Brown. He signed the commutation paper to release me. And on Christmas Eve, the governor's office called, Christmas Eve of 2018, called San Quentin, had me brought into the warden's office and said, "You got 5 days. You're going home."
Wow.
Yeah, it was a shock. I mean, I kind of knew it was coming, but until you get that phone call, you don't know.
Wonderful story, Curtis. Thank you. Now, what are you doing now? Now, you got married. I performed your ceremony.
Well, first,
the guy that essentially runs San Quentin Prison was there at our church with you. And
first,
me.
I just want to give, God had a miracle in store, and I didn't know it And God sent Governor Jerry Brown to release me from prison, and he did. I met a beautiful, beautiful woman. She's rough around the edges, but so am I. I'm married. We have a beautiful home. God is just blessing us mightily. I drive a beautiful car. I drive a Lincoln, a 2018 Lincoln.
I was just in it.
Yeah, and I have a good job. I'm healthy. I'm happy. It's rough, though. It's not. There's a lot of damage upstairs still. It's rough.
Curtis, you got a lot to give. You got a lot of ministry ahead of you. In fact, we're going to work together. We're going to work together in ministry.
I hope so.
And that's what we're going to do.
I would like to say, for any of you out there that are struggling and you're wondering where God is, He's there. He's there more than you may want. He's there. And He has not forgotten you.
All right.
He has that miracle for you.
Thank you, Curtis Roberts, for driving down here today. It's been a pleasure knowing you all these years. Your picture's always been up on my office wall, so I've looked at your picture probably 1,000 times. And now you got a copy of it too. All right, my friend. All right. All right, that's the end of our program. Be looking for all the programs on YouTube. Bye-bye.